is a leader in every sense of the word. She is the head of the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, New York office. Since 2005, she has led UNODC's instrumental contribution to the United Nations headquarters to prevent and combat human trafficking, working closely with the General Assembly and Security Council. She has been a relentless advocate for the rights of survivors in and outside the United Nations and for NGOs supporting survivors, working closely with UPNAAP on this for over a dozen years. She has trained lawyers, prosecutors, judges, and diplomats on combating human trafficking. Simone studied the system of prostitution and its supply chain, worked to understand who key parties involved are and how they function within the system. She used knowledge to build solutions on combating trafficking in a strategic way. We celebrate her achievements. Simone shows how persistence yields results. She has truly forged a new path in a cause to end sex trafficking. We recognize your revolutionary work, Simone, and we honor how you lend your expertise in law to support our mission. We are filled with joy to present you with the Last Girl Leadership Award. Simone.
Thank you, Sierra and for this most meaningful award. When I was 13, I was adjudicated an incorrigible minor by the state of New York. I remain proudly one today. Were it not for advantages I benefited from early in life, I could have been among those girls that UNODC seeks to help today. My work has always been and will always be inspired and informed by survivors. When I joined the UN 20 years ago to become a war crimes prosecutor, I learned that listening closely to survivors was the key to being effective and ensuring justice was done. I was the youngest prosecutor, and initially I was chided for spending too much time in the safe house with survivors. I argued that others did not spend enough time. When I left the war crimes world and moved back to New York, I endeavored to better understand human trafficking through a survivor-centered approach. Rushira was my oracle. Over the years, I have been criticized by some for spending too much time on trafficking instead of other United Nations issues. I choose to remain incorrigible. Thank you, UNODC and my sister honorees, for your support. Thank you for continuously reminding us that we must always listen to the women and girls who have been harmed by the crimes we seek to stop, and that their testimonies can inform and strengthen our responses to improve prevention, prosecution, and to protect victims. Rushira, it has been an honor to work with you and UNODC for these past 14 years. 14 years ago, we didn't have a UN Global Plan of Action to combat human trafficking. We didn't have a UN Trust Fund for Victims of Human Trafficking that we launched together. We didn't have Security Council resolutions on human trafficking, and there wasn't near universal ratification of the UN protocol to prevent, suppress, and punish trafficking in persons, especially women and children, that you spoke about earlier this evening. And there were no UN Goodwill Ambassadors against human trafficking like Nadia Murad, the UN Office on Drugs and Crime Goodwill Ambassador for the Dignity of Survivors of Human Trafficking and last year's Nobel Peace Prize winner. For 14 years, we have changed this and more. But there remains much educating, agitating, and organizing to be done. According to the UN Office on Drugs and Crime's Global Report on Trafficking in Persons, women and girls account for 72% of all trafficking victims. And trafficking for the purpose of sexual exploitation remains the most detected form of trafficking, with women and girls accounting for 94% of all victims. Prosecutions remain scarce, and impunity is all too common. Trafficking with the help of the internet has doubled over the last decade. It now outweighs offline trafficking. This includes cyber sex dens exploiting women and girls in front of webcams for consumers abroad. Funding for survivors remains woefully inadequate. In fact, overall funding to fight human trafficking is minuscule as compared to what is spent on drug trafficking and other more important crimes. So I count on you to apply your pressure to make sure we raise this issue higher on the UN agenda and locally. I count on you to make sure we raise sufficient and sustainable funds for survivors so that next time when we meet with a survivor and we ask them, how long have you been in captivity, their answer is not, you mean the first time or the second time? I count on you to raise bloody hell until there is zero tolerance for this execrable sum of all villainies and the last girl is freed. Thank you.